Good day to you, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Film Focus episode 212, the review for Iron Lung. Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen of the North, South, East and West, and welcome to another episode of Film Focus. I'm your host, the Hypersonic55, and I'm glad that you decided to join me once again for some film-related discussion. And today, we're going to be talking about Iron Lung, which is another video game adaptation, surprisingly. Now, I have talked about Return to Silent Hill and the disappointment that was felt watching that experience. Again, a film that was not completely devoid of any merit, but surprisingly disappointing considering that it was almost 20 years after the last entry and was somehow worse. But this was a different case with Iron Lung because up until about a few weeks ago, I wasn't even aware of this film's existence. I'd never even heard of the video game that it was based on. But I was curious because while looking through Wikipedia of all the major video game adaptations that'll be coming out in 2026, I saw this one appear, and then I saw Markiplier's name attached to it. I'm like, what? Markiplier is making a movie? What are you talking about? Now, I'm not like, some Markiplier like fanatic or follow him in any great capacity. I've seen a number of his Let's Plays over the years, and he seems like a very fun, charming and charismatic kind of guy. And obviously through his Let's Plays of the FNAF games, I've become very aware of his existence essentially. But I didn't know he wanted to get into filmmaking. But my friend from college was interested in watching the film, so we saw it on opening day. And I definitely wanted to contribute my thoughts to this film because after seeing the reception that the film got, with the critic reviews being a little less than positive, but the fan response being a little bit more positive in some circles that I've seen online, I just wanted to say some things because I feel like the conversation surrounding this film is a little too black and white for my liking, and there's a little bit more nuance that is required. So, as per usual on the podcast, we'll be talking about the story, characters, and presentation. So, without further ado, let's jump in. So, the story for this film can be summed up as the following. Set in a post-apocalyptic future after an event known as the Quiet Rapture, the plot follows a convict named Simon who is forced to pilot a submarine through a desolate moon's ocean of blood. He's told that he needs to submerge himself in this machine in order to find something of great importance. Whilst down there, he discovers that there is more to this than what he's been told. And that is a way for me to summarize this film without going into the area of spoilers. So I would say that the story is pretty good in this film. It's definitely a bit of a slow burn as information is drip fed for you. However, as the information is slowly given, you'll get a little bit more context for why the character is here, what he's done, and why there is such a need for him to find what he's looking for. I found things to be very ambiguous, and there was this constant feeling of dread and fear of the unknown because for a fair amount of the time, especially during the early portion of the film, you know that something is out there, something is weird, something is wrong, but you just don't know what. But again, as the film progresses, you start to become more engaged as certain little events start to take place. And then once, for lack of a better term, things start to hit the fan, then things really start to kick off and become a little bit more harrowing, a little bit creepier, and a little bit more funky. This is sci-fi horror, sort of cosmic horror kind of vibe, and I was not expecting that at all. Again, going into this film blind, I had no clue of what I was going into because I never watched any trailers. I literally just knew the name of the film, the fact it was based on a video game, and that Markiplier was, directing it and starring, and that was about it. But yeah, this film goes in some really weird, funky, and just bizarre places, and I was down for it. I will admit it just took a little while to get there. Now, I'm a patient man. I am very happy to sit for a film if there is a good payoff towards the end. And I feel like this film, for the most part, gets there towards the end. I will admit that I was feeling the length of this film a little bit. Part of me was wondering if it was more than 2 hours, and the official runtime, I think, is just over 2 hours. I do feel like there's a version of this film that could have shaved off about maybe 20 minutes. And while I am a fan of ambiguity if used correctly, because there's certain times where leaving things to the viewer's imagination can be a little bit more effective than showing something on screen. There were certain points where I feel like this film did need a little bit more clarification for certain events here and there. Now, granted, I did dip out of this film a couple times because I was super tired that day. And anytime you get me in a relaxed position during a day where I'm tired, I will admittedly disappear. I did catch, I'd say, at least 80 to 85% of this film overall, but probably should watch it again just to see if there are any clarifying details I did miss when I was nodding off. But again, that is not to be a negative towards this film's quality. Again, I was very much engaged for the stuff that I saw. It was just, again, this just happened to catch me on a tired day. Alright, and now it's time to talk about the characters. And while there definitely is more than one character in this film, your primary focus will be on Simon, who's played by Markiplier. So let's talk about him. Now, Simon is a character that we don't know too much about initially. Again, he just seems like a distressed individual who is put in this situation where he's a little frantic, a little scared, and a little aggressive, but basically knows that he doesn't really have a choice in the matter, and he believes that if he goes and does this task for the people that are talking to him on the speaker, who he's in communication with for the majority of the film, he'll be able to at least get a better outcome than what he's dealing with right now. And I feel like Markiplier did a good job. At first, it was a little jarring seeing him play a character instead of seeing him in his charismatic YouTube format, but after a while I really bought into it, and your enjoyment of this film will definitely be tied to how much you're able to buy into Markiplier's performance as Simon, because again, he is the primary focus in this film. And learning about his character, seeing how distressed, confused, and the sort of emotional roller coaster he goes on, especially towards the last side of the film where things get super weird, I think he did a good job. There were certain points where I think certain emotional or intense moments required a little bit more finesse. I feel like, again, for the project that he's doing, and again, the fact that he is a one-man party in this, where he's physically the main person that you can see, he did pretty well. I also enjoyed the other performances from some of the other actors involved, but the person who played Ava in the film, I thought she was pretty good because she was one of the other primary characters who was interacting with Simon throughout the majority of this film. Caroline Rose Kaplan. It's always tricky when you're projecting your voice into a movie and no one can actually see what you're doing, so it's almost like a complete voice acting performance, but I felt like she was very good in this film. And I also really enjoyed Troy Baker as David. He did a great job as well. Alright, so now it's time to talk about the presentation, and this is easily one of the best aspects of the film. When it comes to film set in one location, you have to do a lot to keep everybody's attention, because you're going to be looking at this same place for a long ass time. And for me, I saw a lot of attention to detail when it came to how the interior of this submarine was done. There are a lot of different places on the ceiling, on the floor, on the walls, whether you're talking about the speaker or certain things hanging from the side, or the monitors. All of it looks like it was made with meticulous detail, and the fact that so much of this was done practically is insane, because there is so much things that happen to the submarine over the course of the film where I'm just like, damn, that must have been a ball ache to put together. But again, it shows that even with this, from what I've read, a $3 million budget, they were able to put a lot into this, and again, made use of that money practically. And there were definitely, from what I could see, some digital, effects in there with some CG, but it was effectively used in the right places. So when some of that stuff did kick in, it felt like it worked. There were definitely some restraints you could see in terms of the singular location and some of the CG used, but for the most part, I'm just surprised at how effective everything was. I really bought into the fact that Simon was stuck in this location for so long. The lighting definitely helped, and the color of red, which was draped all over this film, was very well done. And I also quite enjoyed the music as well. The composer's name was Andrew Hulshult, and he did a good job of amplifying the mood and the atmosphere of what was going on. Everything felt creepy, unsettling, and there was just that vibe of something out there is coming, but you just don't know when. But when things do start to happen, the music definitely amplifies, and it just works pretty well. So now it comes to the conclusion. Overall, I thought that Iron Lung was a pretty good time at the cinema. Now again, I can understand that this film won't be for everyone. It is a bit slow, it takes a while to find its footing, and with this being set in a singular location with Markiplier's performance being the primary thing that you have to sit through for the majority of the 2 hours, I can see that not working for a lot of people. I already saw online that there were certain people who saw the film that found it boring, too slow, and there was a lot of people, cussing off Markiplier, saying that he's just a YouTuber, he has no business stepping into the realm of film. And here's the thing, if you have valid criticisms for why you didn't like the film, that's fine. But if you're literally just going to say that the film was bad because Markiplier was involved, or that he is somehow invalid from making films because he comes from the world of YouTube, then that is a very backwards point of view that shouldn't be accepted. Everybody has to start somewhere, and you can see if you watch the film that there was a lot of time spent putting this film together. There is a ridiculous amount of detail that went into the way in which this was crafted, and you can see the care and attention that was put into this. There's a lot of times where you see these sort of lower budget films and you can see the cracks, the seams coming apart, and that is not the vibe I got from this at all. I can see that Markiplier worked with his little team to go about and make something that he felt passionate about, and he went with a very unique approach, especially setting it in one location and having him be the solo person that you'd be following this adventure with. And I felt like for what he did, it was an effective film. Again, I have my nitpicks and criticisms with the film, especially when it comes to its length and pacing, and certain points where I felt like the film should have been just a little bit more clearer about what was going on. However, again, I feel like this is a win for him because the film made back its budget 7 times over, which is insane. And even though I'm not familiar with the source material, I found myself intrigued to see what's going on with the Iron Lung video game. And I found it also interesting that in a time where we got another horror adaptation in the form of Return to Silent Hill, I found myself more interested in watching this than what happened with Silent Hill, and that was a shorter film based on a game which had more notable material to work from in terms of its story and characters. So there's that. But I would like to hear what you thought about the film in the comment section below, or hit me up on Instagram where I am at Film Focus Podcast, and you can listen to the podcast online in various different places, whether it's SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, or Apple Podcasts, should I say. And be sure to like, subscribe, follow, leave me a comment, leave me a review. I appreciate all of that. But yeah, I'm going to stop yapping for now, but thank you for listening as always, and until the next time, this is the Hypersonic 55 signing out. Peace.